Okay, so my mathematicians and statisticians. In the course of the Parashat, 40 verses of Parashat Nitsavim, how many times does the word Hayom occur? Well, for what it's worth, Shoshana, I got 12 just like you. No, I did not count them off here twice. That would be, well, it would be legitimate because we read it. Okay, so 12, 13, 17, Mike. All right, no. I think we can conclude that for a very short reading, the word Hayom occurs frequently, and one has to ask, what's this? Is there a significance to that recurrence? Why does Moshe emphasize in his words Hayom, today, Hayom, today, Hayom, today? Here and now, okay, a certain immediacy, okay? Is Moshe, in articulating this Hayom, expressing hopefulness or concern? He certainly had very little time. So for him, Hayom was, this is the end of the road. I have to say everything that I want to say today. But what's part of Moshe's message that Hayom is so built on? Okay, so it's always, I like that. It's always today, whenever, whether it's us or our ancestors or our descendants, there's always a today in which God's word is important. Okay? And in fact, to take it, if you think about what Moshe's message is, what's going to happen? What's Moshe's fear that the Israelites are going to do in the future? They're going to backslide. I mean, Moshe has lots of experience with the Israelites not following instructions. All right. But part of his Hayom is at whatever point in history the Jewish people collectively decide, this is not the way, on that day, they can renew, restore, and reestablish their relationship with God. So Hayom has a sense of both immediacy and urgency, and it is a timeless opportunity. I want to distribute a page with 3 comments, one of which very much reflects on the topic that we're dealing with, and then the next 2 deal with one of the verses in which the word Hayom is embedded, right? But I'd like us to take these one at a time, right? So I thought about saying, please don't read ahead. But I knew that for some of you, my saying, please don't read ahead would be a challenge to read ahead. So I thought about saying, please read ahead, but I figured some of you being obstinate would ignore that and not read ahead. So whichever version of that will get you to focus on the text that we're on, please do that. Yes, I have to say that the piyut hayom did come to my mind as well, because it's a very, very powerful piyut, though I suspect that we only have a remnant of it. Because it starts as sort of an alphabetic acrostic. Hayom tam senu, hayom this, hayom that, hayom the next thing, but we never make it all the way through. And so whether we only have a fragment of it surviving, or whether someone in the Magzor decided, this is right near the end, we can't sing the whole alphabet, I'm cutting it off, I'm not sure. That's one of those niggly questions that when I one day get to Olam Haba, I'll find the author and say, so did you run out or what? Okay, so I want to look at the first passage from Rabbi Moshe Feinstein in a volume called Darash Moshe in his commentary to this week's Parashat. And he writes as follows: why does Moses stress that he was placing these choices before the people today? And he starts from the premise like, well, duh, Moshe is speaking to the people today. Why do I have to say, today I'm speaking to you? It's sort of muvan me'elav. It's self-understood. And he answers as follows. Perhaps this word's message is that each and every day of our lives, the same choices Moses described stand before us to be confronted anew, sort of along the path that that Martha was suggesting Moshe was going. All right. Certainly, someone whose behavior has been improper until now is obligated to choose the path of good for the future. But even someone who has already chosen that path and remained firmly on it may not rely on past performance to guarantee that they will continue to do good, and must make the choice afresh today and every day, because every day the path of evil and death stands equally before him. And every day, therefore, one must again consciously choose the good. Absolutely. Absolutely. Though, yeah, all of that. The reality is, just because I did the right thing yesterday doesn't mean that I won't do the wrong thing tomorrow. And just because I did the wrong thing yesterday doesn't mean that I can't change and do the right thing today. Yes. Yes, I understood. Yes, for some of us, certain hayoms are very, very indelibly etched. And yes, it is very generational, and it's not even universal within a generation. It's about how we internalized that moment. But I agree with you that I don't think that's a truth, but it's not the truth that I think Reb Moshe was getting at. It's the part of what Moshe Feinstein is trying to do is typical of many of the commentators, which is, I'm reading the Torah, which here is speaking as a historical document, but how do I make it eternally relevant? Otherwise, why am I reading the document? So he's saying the Hayom is because every day is Hayom. Every day we're faced with the choices of how we're going to act. Let's go to the next one. It's also a quote from Reb Moshe, but it's from a different volume. And that's where we need the verse at the top of the page. Okay, so Moshe says to the people, I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day, Hayom. I have put before you life and death, blessing and curse. Choose life if you and your offspring would live. it's a very, it's a powerful image. It's like, who am I getting as witnesses that will be here forever, essentially? Right? Heaven and earth. The earth is not going anywhere. The heavens are not going anywhere. They will be there before you, after you, and long after you. So who better to witness against you if you follow the rules or not? And so Moshe Feinstein asks again the question, why do we need this verse to give us a reason for choosing the good? It should suffice to know that the result of choosing evil is death. Or if perhaps not that extreme, we know that the results of evil have negative consequences, which not only are negative for the person who is your victim, but for you yourself in the long run. So why does Moshe have to tell us this? Why does God have to tell us why to do good? And I was intrigued by his answer. The verse is intended to tell us what kind of good we are to choose, namely a good that is powerful enough to leave a lasting impression on our children and students and make them also want to choose the good. What do you think Reb Moshe is getting at here? After all, isn't doing good inherently sufficient? Okay. Or, I mean, I think Reb Moshe might say, but Roy, aren't those things inside the norm for Jewish people? I mean, leket, shichacha, peah, we've got a whole cadre of rules granted within an agrarian model in which we're supposed to do exactly all those things. So, but the answer I'm looking for is inherent in what you said, but not in what you said. Yes. Okay. Sometimes we can't do it alone. Oh, okay. So I can do this good, but I might not be successful in doing that good. Okay. An intriguing and true statement. Okay, so you think Reb Moshe is saying step outside of the things you're good at and try the things that are more challenging. Okay, I like that. Arnie. Okay, so you're suggesting, if I can paraphrase you, that good is fluid based on the observer. What I did, right? And I'm going to emphasize the word observer because I think that's the key to understanding Reb Moshe here, right? Which is there are many good acts that I can do that are hidden. Nobody sees if I write a check and send it somewhere. No one sees, the small kindnesses that we may do in the course of a day. And I think what Reb Moshe wants is not for us just to do acts of kindness or do good, but to be visibly seen as doing so, even though that sort of feels a little counterintuitive, because what's our job? It's not just to do good, but to be role models of good for the people who are watching us. I think it was Edmund Flegg, but I'm willing to stand corrected, who said, children have never been very good about listening to their parents, but they're really, really good at watching them. So my telling my kids to do X or Y or Z carries some weight, increasingly less weight as they get older. Um, don't misquote me on that. Um, um, but I guarantee you, they have seen and watched what I do with eagle eyes. So I think Reb Moshe is going, yes, our natural proclivity is not necessarily to say, hey, look at me, I'm doing good. If anything, we're sort of taught not to be boastful about it, but I think it's about being demonstrative. Let's look at the last quote on the page. This is from Rabbi George Gittleman. What does it mean to choose life? I believe part of what it means to choose life is not to expect too much from people, to learn to accept people for who they are, to respond to them with understanding and compassion, forgive them for what they are not, and try to appreciate them for who they are. Choosing life means forgiving ourselves, especially for things we're not responsible for. Okay, but what about the stuff we are responsible for? What about our failings, our weaknesses, our sins of various kinds? Of course, we must do everything we can to right our wrongs, to pay our debts, to set what's crooked straight. Nevertheless, at some point, when we've done the best we can do, the only life-affirming response that we can have is to have compassion on ourselves, to recognize our humanness and accept our weaknesses. Ultimately, choosing life means learning to love ourselves in spite of our failings. What do you think about his suggestion, especially as we are very quickly approaching a period of the year which demands a level of introspection and perhaps self-critical evaluation? Okay, so you would say what exactly to Rabbi Gittleman? What would be you're not convinced by him? Okay, so what's the model that you would put in place? Okay, what about the first part of what he says? But not necessarily yourself. And perhaps, before I get to you, Arnie, perhaps that's also part of a necessary precursor to doing the other. That if I'm willing to recognize that I'm imperfect, then so much that makes it easier for me to see others in a similar lens. Arnie. No, you have to choose one. I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm going to defend the Torah a little bit. Um, uh, yeah, it kind of comes with the territory. All right. I think part of what's happened is the Torah, when it speaks of you, it speaks of the collective you. The judgment that it's talking about is about the society and the collectivity of the people Israel. That, and I'm not saying that just because I'm trying to dodge the bullet of your question. But I think that is really true when the Torah is talking about reward and punishment. Because think about what the rewards and punishments are framed as. You will have rain and dew at the right time and dew in the right season, and your crops will grow and right? Well, that's a collective reward or punishment. I think the challenge that you're raising is not lost. I mean, that's the book of Kohelet, and that's a whole lot of other parts of the Bible, but those are much later where it's focused less on us and much more on me. Why do I suffer? Why do innocents suffer? And on one level, I think part of the Torah's response is that there's something broken within the society that allows some of that suffering to happen. So I brought Gittleman in part because it challenges one of the essential fabrics and rubrics of the High Holy Days. But I brought it also because it addresses itself in some ways the same way to the question of what does it mean to choose good that Moshe Feinstein addresses, right? For Feinstein, it's about doing good in a way that creates role modeling. And for Gittleman, it's about how we interact with others. And if we really want forgiveness, we have to be willing to do it and forgive others and be generous of spirit. And I think his statement starts at least with a generosity of spirit for the self. Okay. Chaverim, let me invite you to turn back to your Sidurim.